growing up with my dad was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
You know, I had him until the time I was 8, and that's when my parents got divorced or separated. And in that time, we had a big playground, and we had a sandbox. And my dad and I had a sort of an elevated ramp. And all this stuff was stuff that he, architected and got built. And then we took knives. My dad was not usual. Right? He exposed us to a lot of stuff that parents normally don't. Right? And he was just trying to kind of trust that we wouldn't get hurt or take it the wrong way. And we didn't. We never had a problem. So we had these knives, and we would throw them into the sandbox. Right? And he said that this is a survival skill, because when you're in the Indian jungle, if a tiger comes to you,
you need to know how to throw a knife.
You need to know how to throw a knife, but you can only get the tiger after it runs and lunges at you and shows its underbelly, because it has a thick hide. Your knife's not going to do you much good otherwise. And that's one thing that we did. It's very unusual.
Interesting. That is unusual. Yeah.
Another thing, my dad was he had a very clever mind, and he came up with a lot of games. Right? So he loved playing chess, he loved playing checkers, but he also sort of thought of games to play with balls and things like that. So we had this one game where we had all these, like a bunch of toilet papers that we got from Costco. Right? You get 24.
Yeah.
Right? So we'd stack 10 pyramidal, like a bowling pins, right? Except on top of each other. And it was something like throw the tennis ball and roll it, and then see if you can hit this one and knock this one down. Or it was something like that. And this was outside on this area of sidewalk. And I was playing, and I was just a happy kid.
Sounds like a waste of toilet paper to me.
But we used the toilet paper after that because it was still in its wrapping.
Yeah.
And I stepped on a caterpillar, and it died.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I'm like, oh boy, look, oh geez, I stepped on a caterpillar. That's awful. And then he went inside when we were done. He told my mom, Jai stepped on a caterpillar, but he was so empathetic and so sensitive that he was very sorry about it. Right? So he praised me in that way.
That's interesting. And you remember that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget these things.
Yeah.
And another thing, we had a Chevy van.
Yeah.
And at night, he and I would go out in the driveway, and I would sit in the driver's seat. This, again, another unusual thing. And I would turn on the lights. If I turn on the lights, he'd go and run around the car. If I turn them off, he'd come back to the driver's seat. And then I hit the signal, left or right. Then he'd have to go and see which signal I did, and then he came back to me.
That's sweet.
Then he would also, again, another unusual thing, he would drive, and he'd have me sitting in his lap, and I'd be steering. Right? And he'd go really slow, and he could override me easily and all that. But that was the beginning of my love for cars, because we had a few vans back in the day. My parents had these jewelry businesses, and they used to use these vans to move all this merchandise. Yeah, like the Ford Econolines and those like industrial vans. Those are my childhood cars, So I've loved cars since the beginning. It was a Ford van, a Ford minivan, and a Chevy van. Then we had another Plymouth van. Plymouth, which used to be part of Chrysler. Yeah. It's gone now.
Right. But that's not the van that you had through college, was it?
No, I had a Nissan van through college.
Right, yeah.
I've got
Old Faithful.
Yeah, I actually have a sedan now. So.
It's not so faithful anymore, I guess.
It's a very faithful car. Oh, the minivan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's gone. But yeah, it's another car now.
Yeah.
It's recycled.
Yeah.
Probably. So, but all those memories are really precious to me.
That sounds very sweet.
We'd watch movies together. We watched Star Wars, Titanic, Godzilla.
Did your dad have anything to say about Star Wars and the characters, or?
Well, I remember when in Return of the Jedi, when Luke and Vader are walking together, and then Vader says, "The Emperor has been expecting you." "I know, Father." "So, you have accepted the truth." And I remember that my dad said, "Oh, he's acknowledging, that Darth Vader is his father." So we watched that scene, but we never had any intellectual conversations about it or anything.
But you could imagine that you could with them, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my mom says that she regrets that I didn't get to have my dad on Amazing People.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mom said that.
That's nice. And she's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, you know, he was getting sick and he was in pain and it was causing all of us a lot of pain. But, you know, we've lost a very interesting and amazing person, really, you know. But everything that I learned from him, I pass forward, you know. I mean, I learned a lot, you know. This guy was clever beyond anything, and he had a mind unlike anything else. And in whatever ways that I have that through genetics and also from what I've actually learned by being in his presence, now it's still here. It's in me. And that's why I do what I do.
That's a great way to talk about and conceptualize like regret with the loss of a family member, especially someone you're really close with.
Yeah, and I guess the lesson would be whatever you learn from them that you think is valuable and amazing, just live that.
Pass it on.
Live it, pass it on. That's what it is, and it makes the loss feel like less of a loss because some of that person's still inside you.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
what's interesting
still
about death. Like you get to take the best parts of people and try and live them yourself or pass them on in some way. And in that way, because people aren't perfect, you know what I mean? But the best parts of people is what lives on. It's what
That's the part that people choose to carry forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. That being said, a lot of times when someone has negative qualities, that, you know.
If you're being intentional about it, then
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. You would never intentionally carry on the negative qualities, but sometimes you just learn them to your core of your being, and
it feels like you can't help it or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, you know, father-son relationship, very good. It's over for me now. You know, one day I think I'll have a son, and that'll be a really good time. You know, and everything I learned from my dad, everything, good and bad, that will be part of my thinking and figuring out how to treat the little kid.
Never imagined Jay the father.
Well,
I'm starting to think about it a little bit.
You've known me too much as a little boy and kid. And since we're friends, we act really stupid. So, yeah.
No, but
that day may come.
But not this day.
But not this day.
No, I can imagine it.
I'll be a very loving father.
I think so.
Maybe I'll be a strict father.
Takes both kinds.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll figure it out when it happens.